Welcome to Decker Tech. I'm Aaron Decker, and today we're going to go over the quick guide for how to play Dazzle in Dota 2. This is intended for the assumption that you've played Dota before, you're a pretty average player, but you're just looking to pick up Dazzle or maybe kind of refresh or get an item build for Dazzle. So we'll kind of go through an item build, kind of the different roles you'll be playing throughout the game and how your spells interact with those parts of the game. So let's get to it. First off, in the early game, Dazzle's go-to spell is all about Poison Touch. Now, Poison Touch is the damage over time effect, but most important part of it is that it reapplies every time you auto-attack the target that's debuffed with it. Now, you can hit multiple targets with it. Usually in the early game, you're just trying to focus down one or two targets, preferably the two enemy heroes in lane. Oftentimes, it'll just be one person you're chasing down, but it really is a chase down spell. So you're going to try to ambush your players, your enemies, get up close to them, and start right-clicking them and chasing them down. Because if they stay to fight, they're just going to be taking so much more damage than you that they're just not going to win the trade, right? So it's all about chase down. And I've got some clips to kind of show you what's going on there, right? Ah, crap. It broke. We'll get there. Sorry. I was messing through some technical ways to show all this, and the Dota interface is not the safest of interfaces, yes? So, right here, I had it, 320. So, in the early game, it's all about, you're going to get, let's go, sorry, let me do the technical stuff here. Player view, moi. A little bit of interface bug. I'm not affected by Frost Arrow Slow. But we're going landing, and I picked a game where we struggle most of the game, and it's a comeback win overall. But in the lane, my goal is to kind of either chase down this Lich or this Drow with my Poison Touch. So right now we're just trying to set up. I want to get the Drow out of position so that I can chase her down. And when I say I chase her down, yes, Tide helps, and there's a lot of damage from Tide, and the slow is nice. But a lot of it is this Poison Touch. So you just get up on them and see, we've got two slows on her. We've got the Gush slow, but my dot's still ticking on her. The Poison Touch, if you see, it just reapplies every time you attack the target, and so you can just kind of chase them down. Usually what you didn't see is early game, I would be chasing Lich out of lane. Like he'd come harass me, I'd just go chase him away. And it got to this point where you could kind of set up to get the kill on Drow. And you do that in the early game. You're just kind of getting Poison Touch, and you're going to level it up, level 2, level 3, to the point that you feel you can successfully get enough of the... I just got to navigate this. Here it is. So you'll level this up to the point that you're in the laning phase, and you're just kind of shoving the heroes out of lane so that they can't successfully trade with you. It's in a very aggressive, I want to right-click you down sort of thing. So in the early game, you can either do a Windlace, or sometimes I'll go for the Blightstone. These are just to help you trade with Poison Touch, because you want the movement speed to be able to keep up with them, because the slow is nice, but some heroes will still kind of outpace you, because that's 16% slow, just with your auto-attack animation stuff. So stagger stepping, chasing them down is good. So either a Windlace to keep up with them and keep that dot applied as long as possible, or the Windlace, or the Blightstone, which just increases the damage, since Poison Touch is physical damage. And your overall kit is all about armor reduction, armor increase, and physical damage. You do have like all your spells are physical damage, like Shadow Wave. I for the longest time thought it was magical too, but no, everything is physical. You are a armor reduction, armor increasing, physical damage spellcaster, right? So in the early game, it's all about just making trades unfavorable for your opponents. So you're going to get some regen, some trading items. Salve's not showing here. Silly bug. You can just trade out a branch or two, or this mango for a salve. Just normal early game items. But you're going to want to build into mana boots pretty early. Late game, it's going to help you a lot just with your overall kit, because you're a cooldown reduction kind of person. You can either do that through the Octarine Core or the Agnum Scepter. But you're just going to be getting a lot of value out of these boots later on, especially if you upgrade them to the Guardian Greaves. So you're going to be aiming for coming out of the lane with Boots and Magic Wand, and then during that transition time between early game and mid game, you're going to be wanting to try to get up this Aether Lens so that in the skirmishes and team fights you have the cast range and the mana to effectively pull off your other abilities, which, in this case, Shallow Grave and Shadow Wave. Shallow Grave, this is the one that everyone knows Dazzle for. This is the, by the way, you can't die unless Axe is on the enemy team. Read the fine print here on this one. HP cannot go below 1 except for Axe, so just keep that in mind. But Shallow Grave is all about, hey, look, you can't die, I saved your life, haha. But with this, it rides that line of you want to cast it as late as possible to get the most effect, but casting it too early is better than casting it too late, because if you cast it too late, you didn't save anyone, right? But if you cast it too early, you just get a little less save out of it, but that's still like missing on the wrong side. Missing on the too late side is much worse than missing on the too early side, right? So try to keep that in mind as you do this. Yes, aim for the lowest health you can, or they're almost about to die, like right before they die. But don't be afraid to cast early, especially in the later game when this cooldown starts going lower, because you start getting a good juju, reducing the cooldown of it as well. You can cast this 2 or 3 times in a fight. Don't be afraid to cast it early. It's a really fun spell when it happens, but it requires a little bit of, like, don't save it, if that makes any sense. Don't worry about committing it too early. It's better to commit it too early and start learning and pushing the edge from that side than the other side, right? You'll get a lot less people upset at you too. But let's see. And then the other spell is Shadow Wave. This one's got a fun interaction. It hits multiple targets. It only hits allies, right? So even though it says damage to enemies, remember it doesn't bounce to enemies. So the way to get the most damage out of this spell is to have allies clumped around an enemy. Easiest use case is, of course, lane creeps. When the 2 lane creeps meet, you can just hit all of yours and it'll blast all the enemy ones. Or if you have someone on your team like PL or Terrorblade or someone that has illusions. Sorry, Naga Siren's a much better example. Someone that has multiple melee presence in a team fight, you can hit them with Shadow Wave and it'll do a big nuke on the enemy team that they're surrounding. But remember, this is really just a heal spell. Like, use it early game as a heal spell. When you're clearing waves, you want to use it as nuke. But for the most part, this is just I want to cast it as often as possible to get my team high health and to save their life right after a Shallow Grave. Like, the biggest use for this is you Shallow Grave someone, and then you don't heal them during the Shallow Grave until like the last second of the Shallow Grave, and then you pop your Shadow Wave or your mechanism or whatever healing you have on them right before Shallow Grave expires, because if they're ticking down at 1 HP and they keep getting hit, like if you heal them and then they go down to 1 again, you didn't do any healing, right? So you want to save your healing to the final moments of Shallow Grave if you can. But again, erring on the side of too early is better than the side of too late. Because if you go to try to heal them right, like a split second after Shallow Grave ends and they have a dot or someone hits them, they're dead. You got to heal them right before it ends. So again, early is better than late. And I have another clip for this one. Don't mind me. This is my first foray into guides here for Dota. The interface, I don't do any editing, so I am a slave to the interface here, right? Alright, so teamfight goes south. I'm up here clearing a wave. And this is just to show you kind of how you would clear waves when... Because remember, as a support, you do need to farm sometimes, and or you just need to push out waves. The Poison Touch, I would apply it to everyone, and then I want to hit every target I can to keep it ticking again. And then on the Shadow Wave, when all these creeps are up there, you see I wait till the halfway, and then I heal my creeps, and it blasts, like every single one of my creeps does a heal splash around it that does damage, and then you can just kind of clear off the wave. Very simple, very straightforward, but it's a fun little thing. And you have, in the mid to late game, you're casting these spells all the time. Let's see, what else we got here? So item-wise, what we're looking for is, like I said, that Aether Lens, and then we're going for this Aghanim Shard. So I don't have a really good example of this one except for some of the late game fights, but let's go to one that was fairly okay. So this shard is really nice because it really turns this slow spell that you've been relying as a chase down. You're not going to do that in the mid game. Like, you're not going to go chasing people down with Poison Touch because they're not afraid of you anymore, right? But in the mid to late game, what it is a good CC. So, you know, I'm saving the co-op, but I kind of follow up some CC. Yes, I overlap it, but just the fact that I have a CC now, I have a crowd control, I can lock down the enemy. That's what you're going to find the most use out of this poison touch in the mid to late game. Is you get the shard, and now you have it a disable, and you can start with it. You can follow it up. It's AOE. It instantly kills clones. I don't know if you saw that, but the I don't know if I actually cleared the Manta Illusions, but if she did Manta Illusions, or maybe it was later in the game, it would instantly, like, it goes to hex them. Any hex breaks illusions, right? So the shard is following that same line of thought. Alright, what else we got? Now the ultimate. So, good juju, bad juju. Don't worry, it's still one spell. You don't have to click one or the other. They level up at the same time. It's just that if you get the Aghanims, you'll have 2 buttons to press. You normally just start with bad juju as a clickable spell. And what this does is every spell that affects either an ally or an enemy will be increasing or decreasing their armor respectively. And this is basically just a heal all button, right? What you want to use this for is you kind of weave it in with all your other spells, and it's like Shadow Wave is heal a target person and kind of chains around and splashes, right? And Bad Juju is just a heal everyone around me. And it also deals damage around you. I wouldn't really try playing around the deals damage part too much. Just think of it as another heal. Your job here is to kind of keep your team healthy, cast as many spells as possible. Yes, you kind of want to wait on Shallow Grave once or twice, but for the most part, all your spells, you're just taking them off cooldown because of good juju here. Whenever you cast a spell, all of your other spells cooldown gets reduced, right? So the more you cast spells, the more spells you can cast. It's a very fun cycle, and at late game it requires some very fast fingers because you're going to be casting your spells constantly in the late game, especially if you get any sort of cooldown reduction. So remember, for any of those that have played Dazzle in the past, Dazzle does not have a baseline item cooldown reduction. He used to be the case. So that is not the case anymore. That's tied up in the Aghanim Scepter, which doesn't show here, but if I go to items, the Aghanim Scepter, this reduces all item cooldowns by 50%. Now, that's no good until you have items, right? So you want to buy one or two big items before you buy your Aghanims, if you plan on doing so. And then I have it listed here situational for that reason, because like once you get Guardian Greaves, Aghanim Scepter is basically I have a second Guardian Greaves, and it's a pseudo refresher orb for your allies because you can either target yourself with it or one of your allies to reset all the cooldowns again, right? But it's not their spells, just their items. So Aghanim Scepter is really good if you or anyone on your team is dependent on items with activations that need to be reset. You know, BKBs, of course, are a great one. But, you know, Guardian Greaves for yourself, that kind of stuff. But early game, you're going to be much more relying on these spells. So I highly recommend going Octarine Core first, because it is reducing the cooldown of your items as well. But just the way your spells work here, because good juju is reducing, like every spell cast reduces the time between the next spell cast, right? So if you get enough cooldown reduction, you're basically casting all of your spells over and over. You're going to need mana to keep it going, but it's very powerful in a team fight because bad juju is stacking for every cast you do, right? So you're kind of a momentum kind of spellcaster, right? You want as many spells going as possible. Especially, it's really annoying for your enemies if you can Shallow Grave every time that you need to, right? So let's just take a look at a couple team fights. Just going to show you some of these, how they went. Like I said, this was a game that we were losing most of the game, right? And eventually we get to come back here, and it's really, I'm going to say, our team fight had a lot to do with it. All right, a little bit of bugs here, but we smoke up. So for the Dazzle positioning, you don't want to be in the front line, right? But you want to be at this range that you can always reach your allies with spells, which is why I think the Aether Lens is so powerful. Alright, so BKB up, I can't hex him, right? I think I already tried doing it on someone else or him, and then he BKB'd it off, right? Shallow Grave the moment he jumps on me, or I think he's going to jump on me, just to keep myself alive, and I want to be staying in range just to keep my spells going. As you saw, I cast everything like 2 or 3 times. And I know that was very quick, so let's go through it one more time. But pay attention to the shallow grave cast and the poison touch casts. See, I was getting CC'd, and with the shallow grave, you got to pay really close attention to how much crowd control your enemies have, how many stuns and such, because you want to make sure you get your shallow grave off before you get CC'd. Like if they're going to target you and you're going to be the one they're trying to kill, you've got to be ready to shallow grave when you're at 100% HP, just because you know they're about to go on you, sort of thing, right? Because you're just not going to have the opportunity to protect yourself until after the stuns wear off. So it's, like I said, earlier is better than later, and as you can see, the cooldowns are very quick, especially here at max levels. I have the opportunity to cast them all again, and Poison Touch, I'm no longer chasing people down and trying to kill them with it. I'm just using it as a form of crowd control. I'm kind of repeating myself, so let's just go on to the next fight. This one's kind of fun. I like this one a lot. So this is one I think we're behind. We're down a guy. I think I might have already bought back or something. Like we're running away. Bad things are happening, right? But this one kind of showcases. So this is a 4v5, right? Boom, cast range, very important. Keeping the Tidehunter alive with Shallow Grave. Casting my heal spells, I've got Guardian Greaves, and I've got Shallow Grave, and I have my ultimate. All 3 of those are my heals, right? They're AoE heals. Shallow Grave, you got to have your cursor on people, but the other 2 are just an AoE around you, so you don't really have to worry too much about targeting those, right? I know I'm talking over a very busy fight. Unfortunately, the tide dies eventually, but as you can see, everyone, you just have so many opportunities for spells, and it's a lot about... It's a very busy character to play in team fights, because you got to be paying attention to who the enemy's targeting, what spells are dangerous, what stuns are coming out, that kind of stuff, right? You got to try to preempt any damage the enemy is going to do on your team to keep them alive. I want to do that Tide save again. That makes me happy. Bam! Tide lives. And I'm doing my best. Like, as soon as something comes off cooldown, I want to press it. And I'm planning what my next spell is while I'm waiting for it. And as it is, I even sit on a couple of these spells a little longer than maybe I should, just because I'm not the quickest at reacting. What can I say? Remember, that was one of the fights where we were behind. We're taking a 4v5, and we end up taking, 2 for 2 by the end, right? So, overall, really fun, really exciting. And last but not least, I think I got one more here to show, and then I'll kind of wrap it up. And again, if you have any questions on this stuff, I will happy to talk about it. Oh, I don't know if this one is all about positioning for Dazzle, right? So we're all running up together. I want to make sure I'm with everyone so that we don't, get split up too much. But as the fight starts, I want to be kind of sitting on the edge, staying away, staying out of AoE, and making sure I'm not CC'd so that I can cast my spells on these targets when they need it. Because this Sven, pay attention to this Sven here. I'm waiting for my Shallow Grave to come up. Boom, get him. And he kind of lives through that CC that would have killed him. And I'm just trying to play the edges of the fight and making sure I get as many spells off in a fight as possible. Because this bad juju, you can see it's got a really big radius, right? So that's just your AoE heal, AoE armor. Like any spells you're casting on people are upping or decreasing their damage, right? I mean their armor. So it's really fun to... your positioning is really important. You got to be with the team, but you don't want to be in the pile, if that makes sense, right? Kind of normal support kind of stuff, I guess. But it's nice to be reminded of it. And then the final fight, just because I've got it on my list of things and I don't know what I'm supposed to be talking about anymore. Trying to stay near the team, willing to take the fight when they are, kind of playing edge. Here, I'm not ashamed to have cast that because it's going to come off cooldown really quick, and if they had stunned me down and locked me up, I would have straight up died, right? So sometimes Shallow Grave is just a preventative measure, like, hey, it's a mental thing. The enemy's not going to target the person with Shallow Grave because they know it's not going to do anything, right? And Sven here, I mostly save him, right? The Hex is a good CC. The heals, I miss a heal on him. I don't get the Shallow Grave. My fingers aren't that fast, but we eventually clean up the fight, right? But you can see where your focus has to be. It has to be on who on your team is getting focused. Where am I healing? It's just a very... I'm babbling at this point. So, let me go back to the item build, make sure I covered everything, and then we'll wrap this up, right? So items, Shard I think is 100% required. If anything is not as required here, it's the Aether Lens and Octarine Core. I think Octarine Core is a really safe, reliable way to go, especially if you build the Aether Lens like early. But other routes are Solar Crest. The build up for Medallion is really synergistic in lane. Like, this is a good laning item, the Medallion, because you're Poison Touch, you Medallion them, you chase them down, you do a lot of physical damage. And then of course your standard support items. The Holy Locket is a pretty common occurrence. The problem with the Holy Locket is that the cooldown reduction from items doesn't increase how quickly this gains charges. But it is nice to have another heal for when you Shallow Grave someone. Oh, on Shallow Grave, I didn't talk about this. It has that heal amplification, right? So one nice thing with the Holy Locket is when you Shallow Grave someone, they get really low, it's about to expire, you pop Shadow Wave, you pop Bad Juju, and you pop Holy Locket on them, whatever you have available, and you can bring them, you know, past 50%, maybe up to full, depending on how many Locket charges you have and how squishy your teammate is, kind of thing, right? What else we got here? Normal items. Like I said, this is an Aghanim Scepter, but remember, it's not a refresher. It's not a refresher orb. It is items only. So don't expect to be able to reset the cooldowns of your allies' spells, right? This is an item thing. And since it's so item reliant, it's kind of a late game pickup. Pick it up after you have your own items that are being affected by the 50% item reduction, which is very powerful. If you want to skip Octarine Core to get Ags, that's fine, but I'd recommend doing it after you pick up Guardian Greaves or Scythe of Ice or something powerful to pay off for it. I babbled a bit. I think the damage part is good just to help you yourself kind of farm during the downtime. Mana regen is nice, but you can itemize for mana regen. Damage, it's just a large chunk, right? It helps you clear camps, clear waves, that kind of thing. Get your last hits, get your gold. Attack speed is really nice if you do find yourself in the mid or late game doing a lot of poison touch and actually chasing people down still, just because you can keep it applied on multiple targets, because you have to right click, you have to get an attack on each target to reapply the poison touch. But overall, I think it's just safer to go the Shadow Wave. I often go the attack speed because I'm a very aggressive person, but it's probably not the optimal way to go, right? Especially if it's your first couple times. This heal on Shallow Grave end, remember, like I said, the most optimal heals on a Shallow Grave target is right before it expires, and this is perfect timing. The game will do it for you, right? So this is really good. And yeah. I recommend just kind of the reason these are staggered like this is it's all about cast range for me and my comfort. So I'd recommend getting 2 or 3 points in Poison Touch for the laning and then switching into these other spells. The biggest part about Shallow Grave upgrades is that extra cast range, because especially, I mean, they had a Vengeful Spirit, so that's extreme cases, but sometimes the person you need to save is really far off the map, right? So if you're having trouble getting to someone in time, Shallow Grave will help you close that distance on getting the Shallow Grave off. I just kind of like getting my Poison Touch up really high so that I have that max cast range for when I get the Hex, because I really play into the Shard. But you don't have to go this high on the Poison Touch if you're finding that you don't need that cast range. These two, it's really all about the cast range. Shadow Wave, it's all about the increase on damage. And a couple levels just to get the max heal targets for the waves, because as the game progresses, the waves have more and more creeps in them, right? Anyway, enough babbling. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did enjoy this, please let me know so that I can decide whether or not to make more of these. And if you do want to see more of these, let me know which heroes. And of course, any critiques are optional. I mean, I'll accept that and I'll reply to those. And I will catch you later. Peace.